consulate in Japan.
No way.
17-day
Wow.
romance. Marriage lasted 16 days away from being 51 years.
Holy cow. That is crazy. A 16-day courtship
That
and
was
then
it.
50-year marriage.
Yep.
That is amazing. Oh my
And
gosh.
Mother
That's
was a
that's some kind of
character.
story.
Oh, yeah, she was a
I can't even
character.
imagine.
She had
I
all
can't
kinds
even
of
imagine.
beaux when she was over there.
Holy cow. That is too funny. So, do you know how long they actually stayed in Japan?
They stayed in Japan from the time Mom was, I want to say, 15. She lied
Okay.
about her age to get into the military. Uh, her
Wow.
mother signed for her so she could get in. You have to remember, at that point in history, there really wasn't anything for a woman,
Right, right.
and that was her one way out.
Wow.
So she met a striking officer, got pregnant, got out of the military, and the rest is history.
Man, that's so amazing. So amazing. And because of your mother and father, that's why we have this Honor Across Arms podcast. And by the way, today, listeners, we're joined by Katie O'Neill, who is the producer behind the show, and she's the producer with Society Bites Radio. She puts this show together for us on the Honor Across Arms podcast. It's because your parents, Katie. That's why we have this podcast. That's why we're able to lift up our military service and our brothers and sisters and talk about your mom and dad. This is so amazing.
They were a very dedicated couple when it came to the military. They understood. And being raised by military parents, you're raised to understand as well. And there is no question as to who's in charge. And I can tell you for a fact that by the time I was 5 years old, I could bounce a quarter off my bed.
That's so funny.
Now, only a military person would understand what that means.
Absolutely, with those hospital corners and squaring that thing up and making it tight. You know it.
Absolutely. Mother would walk around the house doing the white glove treatment after she'd given us a chore. Um,
Wow.
and if we were raised, if you say you're going to do something, then by God, do it. Uh,
Sure.
Dad always said, I don't care what you do, but be willing to sign your name to the dotted line when it's done.
Wow.
And he
Wow.
was a good, inspiring person for those kinds of things. Mother eventually became a nurse and stayed a nurse for 33 years.
That's
15
perfect because
years.
that was what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
What did they end up doing after their service?
Well, Mom worked for the Springfield uh, Osteopathic Hospital
Hmm.
for she came out of school a year after we moved to Missouri. So she still had one more year of schooling to become a nurse at that time. And we had to move to Missouri because Dad's mom was ill. So
Oh,
Mom finished her training, and after those 33 years, she volunteered in the Guild for another 15. In the process of her volunteer time, she went back to writing and has ghostwritten on several books for doctors, and she developed a coloring book for kids to understand, why we're taking your temperature and
wow.
I mean, it was pretty cool what she did. It was self-published, but it was really nice that she did that. And Dad, on the other hand, he worked in law enforcement almost immediately from the time he came out of the service.
Well, I
He's
mean, special forces to law enforcement, that's a pretty easy
It's an easy
segue.
switch. Yeah, it's an
Right.
easy transition. So he became a Texas Ranger.
Wow.
Um, After that, he was a deputy sheriff. Then he caught a good break to be at the medical center, the federal penitentiary in Springfield, Missouri. He did his training at Leavenworth Prison in Kansas,
Wow.
and then came back to Missouri and worked at the federal penitentiary for 20 some odd years until he retired.
Now, Katie, your mom and dad's names, what are they? I know we keep calling them mom and dad, but let's put a little personality behind them.
Okay. Mom was Joyce Jadell Yonker Fowler when she met
Wow.
my dad.
Wow.
My dad's full name was Dwayne George O'Neill after his father.
Oh, that's so awesome. So awesome. So, did you guys end up settling in Missouri? Was that where you grew up mainly, or did you all move around a
Mainly.
little bit?
Well, when I was, I think I was born at Fort Leonard Wood, as we affectionately refer to as Fort Lost in the Woods.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point, we stayed in Dixon, Missouri, right outside of Waynesville, for a year after I was born. Then we went to Texas when Dad got transferred to Fort Hood. Now, this was prior to his mother becoming ill. She was already in her late 70s at that point.
Mm, wow.
And when she got ill, we had to pull up roots and go back to Missouri to take care of her, and we stayed there for the rest of our lives.
Wow.
I
And
was
you have brothers and sisters, that's correct?
I have one older brother and one older sister and one younger sister.
Wow. It's, I can't even imagine trying to move a family around like that and raise the family and doing all. I mean, just my wife and I and our dogs, which are our children, it's hard to do that. Imagine taking a whole family.
I don't I don't remember the houses we lived in more than maybe one or two when I was that young. But what I remember most is riding around town or taking long trips in Dad's black Buick. And that black Buick was an old black Buick. It had the big round fenders, it had the round bumper
Oh,
back,
nice.
no air conditioning.
Oh yeah.
You wanted
Roll down
AC, roll
windows.
down the windows. And I can remember all of us piling in that car, traveling from one state to another when Dad had to move.
Wow.
And it was miserable.
Holy cow. I can't even imagine, I mean, but we also think about
I
the
wish I
way
had that
things were
car
back
right
then.
now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No AC, all that stuff. We would complain about it back in the day, but boy, it would be beautiful to ride around that thing now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it'd be great to have
Holy
that.
cow. Holy cow. You know, the really putting together the Honor Cross Arms podcast and because of your mom and your dad's memory, Joyce and Dwayne was your dad's name?
Yes.
Because of them, that's why we have this Honor Cross Arms podcast, because of you, because of the inspiration that you've got for this. And that's why we do this, is to talk about why they served, how they met, how they made you, how this world works by bringing different walks of life together and making people that would typically not meet fall in love. And there's the story from there on out.
Oh, and there's so much more. They were such interesting people.
Oh, absolutely. I think what we'll do is we just have a couple minutes left on today's podcast. I think what we'll do is schedule you up for another podcast if you'd be interested sometime in the
Sure.
future and really talk about your mom and dad's service. Maybe if you have some old documents or something like that where we can talk about where they were located at. We could actually maybe you and I offline will look up some stuff and see if we could really come up with an interesting historical outline of who your parents were.
I
Who
don't think
Dwayne and
that would
Joyce
be
were that
too
made it
difficult to
together.
do. Mother and Dad both were very humble, to say the least, about their military service. My father did not like to talk about it, and
Hmm.
Mother didn't bring it up very often because Korea was really a hard time in
Oh yeah.
our history. And for them to have to be a part of something like that, it was pretty rough.
To me, the Korean War is the forgotten war. To me, it's one of the hardest wars that never gets talked about. We lost so many, and it was such a hard, rough climate. The terrain, everything about it was horrible, and we just don't talk about it enough.
No, I don't think people do. I think that I love the fact that when our soldiers came back from Iran and Iraq and Desert Storm and Desert Shield, they were treated with much more respect than our vets were from Vietnam or Korea, for that matter.
Couldn't agree more. It's because of them why we get treated the way we do. There's no doubt about it. Katie O'Neill, thank you so much for joining us today on the Honor Across Arms podcast. I'd like to actually tell the listeners to tune in. We're going to also have you on as a guest to talk about your military service and really just, really dive into who is Katie O'Neill, the producer behind the Honor Across Arms podcast. I can't say thank you enough for putting this together and just having the ideas to make this podcast happen and the inspiration for your parents behind the Honor Across Arms podcast. You're amazing.
It's my pleasure and my honor.
It is an honor. There's no doubt about it. Katie, thanks so much for joining us today here on the Honor Across Arms podcast. Guests, take care and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Line over there, send the word over there, that the Yanks are coming, the drums rum-tumming everywhere. So prepare, say a prayer, send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over there, over